Well, I guess it's Royals season, and lucky us, they recently released the nominees for the 2026 Royals Hall of Fame. I did a video regarding last year's nominees, which may have been the deepest group ever. This year, it might be even deeper. 3 names have dropped off the ballot. Alex Gordon, who was the lone nominee elected in 2025, Jarrod Dyson, who appears to be done after only one chance, and Johnny Damon. Yeah, he's had one too many chances on the ballot. Not the first time he's had one too many. With them off the ballot, it clears the way for 3 new names: Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar, and Greg Holland. Just like last year, there are 9 players eligible, but only 5 can be submitted for the fan vote. If you did not see my video regarding last year's ballot, I'll include a link in the description. But in that video, I asked a bunch of silly questions to determine who makes my ballot. Yes, I asked some completely irrelevant questions to get to my top 5, but my final 5 in that video was my genuine top 5 in real life. Alex Gordon, Joakim Soria, Wade Davis, Billy Butler, and Carlos Beltran. Gordo has since been elected, while the other 4 remain on the ballot. Instead of silly questions, I'm instead creating a tier list, because every YouTube channel needs a tier list video at some point. I have 3 tiers. The first one is for players that I consider to be Hall of Fame locks, and is guaranteed to be among my final 5. The second tier is for players that I consider to be borderline for whatever reason, but you could easily convince me that they are worthy for the Hall. The third and final tier is for players that, in my opinion, regardless of what you may argue, are not worthy of my Hall of Fame vote, and I'm not sure ever will be. I am going to start with the 4 hitters on the ballot, and to help sort this out, I need a benchmark: David DeJesus. Now, DeJesus was a solid outfielder for the Royals from 2003 to 2010, before getting traded to Oakland for pennies on the dollar. While he was pretty good as a Royal, he never really hit that star status, even locally. He started his Royals career being overshadowed by Mike Sweeney, and even after he left, the attention largely turned to Billy Butler, Joakim Soria, and Zach Greinke. While I'm not holding my breath on DeJesus ever making the Royals Hall of Fame, I genuinely think there's an argument, as he was worth 18 WAR as a Royal. Sure, maybe that's only enough for the Hall of Very Good, and the bar should be a little higher, but I have 5 votes for 9 players. I'm going to use all 5. My point is this: if your on-the-field Royals career was not better than David DeJesus, or even on par, then I see no reason to consider you. Now, I am trying to look at this statistically, not just emotionally, and last year's ballot provides a great example. I'm sure Jarrod Dyson's legacy in KC is far greater than that of David DeJesus, but in reality, Dyson was never more than a 4th outfielder. Don't get me wrong, he's one of the best base runners of his era, but as a Royal, he never started more than 83 games in a season. Only twice did he start more than 70. It might be unfortunate to say, but there's a reason he failed to appear on this year's ballot. He's still a Hall of Famer in our hearts. The first candidate I'll discuss was among my final 5 last year: Carlos Beltran. I highlighted him in last year's video, so I won't dwell too much on him. He easily passes the David DeJesus test on the field, and he actually comes very close with longevity. He only appeared in 81 fewer games as a Royal than DeJesus. The matter of how his Royals tenure ended will likely keep him out of the Hall for good, regardless of what the fans may think. After all, us commoners are only worth a fraction of this vote, but to me, the case is clear. Based off of WAR, Beltran is the 8th greatest position player in team history, and could be elected to Cooperstown sooner than later. I viewed him as a lock last year, and I still do this year. Next up is Billy Butler, also among my final 5 last year. I find it funny that DeJesus was worth over 5 wins more as a Royal than Billy despite playing in 290 fewer games. I assumed Billy mainly being the first baseman and designated hitter factors in, but Billy did have a higher OPS plus as a Royal. For years, Billy Butler was Royals baseball. Sure, he was the best of an underwhelming era for the Royals, but this is still someone that left a mark on Kansas City both on the field and off. Even considering the lower WAR, he's a Hall of Fame lock to me. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't been elected yet. I'm sure there are reasons, maybe Danny Valencia knows why, but this was a massive fan favorite that helped carry the Royals lineup for multiple seasons. Just include him, there is no reason to delay it any further. Oh, and thanks to @SeanCrockett896 for reminding me that this picture exists after last year's video. Don't like the fact that topless Billy Butler is now in my search history. I probably could have used a different term. Now, Alcides Escobar. Alcides Escobar was a valuable piece of the Royals World Championship team. This is his first year on the ballot, and it's safe to say he will forever be remembered by the Royals faithful. He is not a Royals Hall of Famer. To go back to the David DeJesus benchmark, Eski played in 369 more games than DeJesus, yet his WAR as a Royal is less than half that of DeJesus. And even if you exclude Eski's final season in Kansas City where he was worth negative 2.1 wins, is 10.3 WAR over 7 seasons enough? His battle was never anything to celebrate. In fact, as a Royal, he had a 73 OPS plus. Do you know who else had a 73 OPS plus as a Royal? Nicky Lopez. Yes, Alcides Escobar was on par offensively with Nicky Lopez. In fact, when looking at the 2025 Royals, that 73 OPS plus is barely better than Drew Waters' 70, and worse than Nick Lofton's 77. Even Jonathan India had an 89 OPS plus. Now, I know what you're thinking. Eski was known for his defense, not the offense. And believe it or not, there is precedent for inducting a player largely on defense, and I'm not even referring to Frank White. I'm instead referring to Freddie Patek, Kansas City shortstop throughout the 1970s. Coincidentally, he and Eski appeared in the same exact number of games as a Royal, 1,245 to be exact. Eski had a better OPS, albeit barely, but if you look at OPS plus, Patek's is higher by 5 points. Patek had 2 more All-Star nominations and even earned MVP votes in 1971. Yes, Eski is the only one to earn a Gold Glove, but Patek had to compete with Baltimore shortstop Mark Belanger for the award, who might literally be the best defensive shortstop not named Ozzie Smith. Patek was a Royal for 9 years, and Belanger won the American League Gold Glove award at shortstop for 7 of those years. If not for him, Patek probably wins a glove or 2. The Patek comparison may be enough for some, but let me remind you, Patek played in the 1970s. He was inducted in 1992. Times were different, and what was considered Hall of Fame worthy during the 70s is different than the 2010s. I cannot justify anything other than bottom tier. You could sell me if the ballot was not as deep, but if it was not already obvious, I think this is a deeper ballot than last year. To round out the hitters on this year's ballot, Lorenzo Cain. Like Eski, this is his first year on the ballot, but unlike Eski, his case is not as complicated. Remember when I brought up the top 10 Royals in terms of WAR and mentioned Carlos Beltran was 8th? Well, look who is 9th. Cain put up over 6 more WAR than DeJesus despite playing in 163 fewer games. He also finished 3rd in the 2015 MVP voting, and arguably the only reason he never won a Gold Glove with the Royals is the simple fact he played multiple games in both center field and right over a single season. He won Wilson Defensive Player of the Year 3 times as a Royal, as well as his first of 3 Fielding Bible Awards. Offensively, Cain and DeJesus were surprisingly similar over the Royals' careers. Doesn't really change much, just something I found interesting. Ironically, this may help DeJesus' case more than Cain's. I see no other place but the top tier for Cain. I think his case is pretty clear, and of the 4 batters, he might honestly have the strongest argument for the Hall. It's now time to discuss the 5 pitchers on the ballot, 4 of them relievers. I first want to talk about the one starting pitcher, Yordano Ventura. As much as I want to see Ace honored, I need to be realistic. Here's a comparison of 2 different pitchers. Ventura is on the left, and a Mystery Royal is on the right. The stats on screen are the first 3 years of the Mystery Royals' 4-year tenure in Kansas City. These are fairly similar numbers, almost an identical number of innings, ERA plus, and FIP, and while Ace had the better ERA, the Mystery Royal was worth 2.5 more wins above replacement. Any guesses? Well, the Mystery Royal is none other than Gilmesh. Now, there absolutely is an emotional reason for inducting Ace, notably Game 6 of the 2014 World Series, but I could think of an emotional reason for all 9 candidates. As for statistically, electing Ace would essentially be doing so on a hypothetical that an amazing career was cut short, which very well could be true, but is that hypothetical really a good reason? I still firmly believe that Ace needs to be honored in some way, even if not in the Hall. But if he has not been elected by now, I highly doubt he ever will be. I feel like I have to keep him in the bottom tier, as hard as that may be to say. Up next is Joakim Soria, who is among my top 5 on last year's ballot. He appeared in 7 mostly full seasons as a Royal, would have been 8 if not for Tommy John surgery before the 2012 season. What fans may remember most was his first 4 seasons with the team, where he was among the better closers in baseball. Over those 4 seasons alone, he had a 2.01 ERA and was worth 12.4 WAR. To be honest, I'm not sure if 4 dominant seasons is enough for the top tier. Plus, while his other 3 seasons as a Royal, even his 2016 and 2017 reunion, were not exactly bad, they weren't great either, just meh. And prior precedent is not exactly helpful. I was tempted to point out that Jeff Montgomery's dominance lasted 5 years, only 1 more than Soria, but Monty is also the Royals' all-time leader in saves and pitching appearances. 12 seasons with the Royals, 10 with positive WAR. Soria is 3rd in saves, behind Monty and Dan Quisenberry, who is also in the Royals Hall of Fame. I can understand the argument for leaving Soria out, but similar to Billy Butler, Soria defined a generation of Royals baseball. He is worthy of the top tier, and once again, worthy of my vote. That leaves us with the HDH trio, Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and Greg Holland. Last year, Wade was my final Hall of Fame vote, and I admitted in last year's video that if I had a 6th vote, it would have gone to Herrera. As for Holland, this is his first year on the ballot. I'm going to go in order, starting with Kelvin Herrera. He has the 3rd most pitching appearances in Royals history, behind Monty and Quiz, who, let me remind you, are both Royals Hall of Famers. He was fairly consistent over those years, but at the risk of getting ahead of myself, his peak was not as explosive as either Wade Davis or Greg Holland. Plus, when you remember the fact that Holland was getting the saves and Wade was pitching like he was not human, Herrera might have been the David DeJesus of that trio. He was solid, he was dependable, he probably should be immortalized, but considering the attention surrounding the other 2, yeah, I have a feeling he'll be the 3rd of the trio to be inducted if all 3 are inducted to begin with. On a weaker ballot, you could convince me to include him in my final 5. This year, he might be the 6th pick again, which sucks because I genuinely want to include him, but I only have 5 votes. Someone has to be left out. 2nd tier. Now, it's time to talk about Wade Davis. Last year, I included him in my final 5, but I was honestly conflicted. He was only a Royal for 5 years, which includes his random comeback stint in 2021 that should have never happened to begin with. In fact, I refuse to acknowledge that season even happened. Any video of him wearing a 71 jersey is AI generated, not real. In his first season in Kansas City, he was downright awful as a starter. He made 24 starts before losing the starting gig, and had a 5.67 ERA over those starts. Wade's Hall of Fame argument is based off of only 3 seasons, but here's the thing, he pitched like a literal god over those 3 seasons. When looking at the previously inducted Hall of Famers, there isn't really a precedent for this. John Mayberry was a Royal for 6 years, with the bulk of his success, about 81% of his WAR as a Royal, coming in 3 of those seasons, but he was still respectable over the other 3, including an All-Star nomination. Would I be crazy to bring up Bo Jackson's induction? We're coming up on 2 years since he was inducted. Like Wade, he was a Royal for only 5 seasons, but the bulk of his success occurred over 3 seasons. He only played in 25 games in his first year, and was replacement level for his 2nd year. I know there was some debate over whether Bo truly deserved the nod, but that's not what this video is for. It feels crazy for me to compare Bo Jackson to Wade Davis, but if you're looking for some sort of precedent to include him on your ballot, Bo might be the closest thing there is. Now, is that enough for me to include Wade on my ballot again? Well, let's look at Greg Holland's case first. As I mentioned earlier, this is Greg Holland's first year on the ballot. It's easy to remember Wade's dominance, but Holland was not far off. From 2011 to 2014, he had a 1.86 ERA over 246 appearances. He had injury issues in 2015, but he came back to Kansas City in 2020 and was almost like his old self. He was only replacement level in 2021, but that season got him within 3 saves of Joakim Soria on the Royals save leaderboard. Speaking of, I'm thinking of all the reasons I gave for including Soria in my top tier. I mentioned Soria's dominant 4-year stretch, yet Holland had an arguably better 4-year stretch. Yes, Soria has a higher WAR and more saves, if only because he was still closing during the 2011 season, but Holland beats him at almost every other stat. Soria beats Holland in career appearances and saves as a Royal, but Holland also played an extra season in Kansas City, and if not for the COVID-shortened 2020 season, Holland could have jumped ahead of Soria at least on a saves leaderboard. If you think Joakim Soria is worthy of the Royals Hall of Fame, then you should also view Greg Holland as worthy, which is making my selection difficult. I entered this thinking I would simply add Lorenzo Cain to the prior 4 names that I voted for last year, but I did not expect Greg Holland to complicate everything. I wanted to try and ignore emotion as much as possible, but emotion may end up being the tiebreaker. I need to get some advice. Casey Wolf, I need your help. Should Wade Davis or Greg Holland get my final vote for the Royals Hall of Fame? Yes, I know the Chiefs wide receivers cannot catch the ball. That's not what I'm asking right now. Dale Jr., you've led me through good times and bad. Who should I vote for, Wade Davis or Greg Holland? Yes, I know NASCAR needs to get rid of the playoffs. We're not talking about that right now. Old Morton Anderson, I need your judgment. Should I vote for Wade Davis or Greg Holland? Again, I know about the Chiefs. That's not what we're talking about right now. All these baubles, I just know they're judging me. Not now, Tony. And no, I'm not bringing back the Jose Guillen Wheel of Chance. Too much unpredictability with that thing. If only you were here, Buck. You'd love these Royals today. I'd ask you, but I'm already voting for you. One of these days, I'll probably vote for you as well. You know, I live in an apartment. My neighbors probably think I'm insane. You know, I'd ask you, but I think you might be a little too biased. Leafy, you might be my final hope. Wade Davis or Greg Holland? What do you mean vote for both? I only have one more spot left. You're saying to remove one? But who? Look right? Did you do that? So my goal was to ignore emotion as much as possible. I failed. This is my final 5. Billy, Locane, Soria, Davis, Holland. I just cannot exclude Billy and Soria. They meant too much for this franchise during some tough years, and they deserve to be recognized even if their teams as a whole were forgettable. When pivoting back to accomplishments as a Royal, Locane stood out the most, followed by Wade. The problem for me personally was that I could not justify including Joakim Soria on my ballot while excluding Greg Holland, who, statistically, had a stronger case. Someone had to be left out, and I settled on the trash can beater. I honestly will not lose sleep if Beltran never makes the Hall, and I'm not just referring to the Royals Hall. I just don't care. I really don't. He's a proven cheater, and if he gets enshrined in Cooperstown, then I never want to hear another argument about Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens being left out, among others. End rant. Well, if you enjoyed this, then feel free to like, subscribe, or even share this video. I'm not usually talking about greatness on this channel. I prefer to focus on the likes of Kyle Davies, Ken Harvey, Gregor Blanco, and Dusty Coleman. My prior video, however, focused on a player that may have been robbed of greatness, Jose Rosado. I'm also on Blue Sky, where I try to keep up with current Royals news. I've been happy with the offseason so far. Hopefully the Royals can find one more hitter at least. Until next time.
The middle, Infante to Escobar. Unbelievable! Are you kidding me? No way you just whipped that out in a one-run game in the bottom of the 9th inning.